Some Monsters Can Never Be Forgiven, on episode 103 of Game Boy Works. Well, it's time for karmic balance, I guess. We've had a run of mostly good Game Boy games here lately, so here's the end of that. It's an import racer called Monster Truck, and so far as I can tell, the thinking behind another and Verrier's Monster Truck for Game Boy was, what if Excitebike, but bad? The existence of this game used to bewilder me. Monster trucks with their giant tires and insane suspensions strike me as a decidedly American hobby, and yet, Monster Truck for Game Boy was created in Japan and stayed there forever. Having played the game now, though, I think maybe I get it. Monster Truck is awful. I have to assume every US publisher had the opportunity to publish this game, and despite the obvious appeal to 1990s kids who loved their fire-breathing funny cars every Sunday, they took one look at the game in action and said, no thanks. It's a real bummer because at a glance, you really want to like Monster Truck. We've seen quite a few racers on Game Boy Works, but they've always been side-scrollers or top-down racers. Heck, there's even a top-down racer coming next episode. Monster Truck takes the Excitebike style 3/4 perspective, which flattens out the circular racetrack into a single linear strip dotted with hazards and obstacles. This is such a good design match for the limitations of a platform like the Game Boy. So it's infuriating that it works out so poorly here. But wow, this has seriously got to be one of the worst interpretations of the Excitebike format ever committed to Silicon. It really makes me appreciate how much we take Nintendo's talent for game development for granted. They make this sort of game look so easy, but it turns out it's entirely possible to bungle the style of racer in extremis. I do feel like there was an earnest effort to do something good here by developer Another, the studio responsible for creating Hot B's first few fishing games, such as the Black Bass for NES. Monster Truck features a handful of active stats to manage, a reward-based currency for purchasing upgrades, and a variety of different terrain types and obstacles to deal with. Your truck's body stat grants you the ability to withstand more damage, which is important. Every time you crash or smash into another racer, you take a little damage. Run out of truck stamina, and you're forced to retire. Better engines allow you to drive faster, and tire upgrades improve your traction on unfriendly surfaces. These all seem like features that speak to a quality game. The problem is, Monster Truck feels awful. Unlike an Excitebike, there doesn't appear to be any sort of lane change mechanic. You're always in the forward lane. This means I was unable to advance beyond the third track of 12, since it's the first track in which other racers occupy your lane. You can shift your car up and down out of the track momentarily as a way to cause other racers to spin out. But despite my best efforts, I was unable to ascertain how exactly to pass other racers. So instead, I just bumped them forward to win slightly faster than they would have otherwise. While I admit this is probably a failing in myself, the Japanese manual likely has information on how to pass other trucks that I just can't read, it does speak to the fundamental mechanical limitations of Monster Truck. The racing here just isn't fun. Your truck spins out constantly, especially when handling road obstacles, which are kind of the point of the game. There seems to be just a perfect bit of finesse required in order to climb steep stairs or make it over logs without flipping the truck. Feathering the gas and brake while rearing the truck back like a motorcycle seems to be the key, but across several sessions with the game I was never able to find the right combination of inputs to be able to tackle the tracks perfectly every time. On top of that, the visuals look terrible, and the soundtrack consists of a grating 4-second loop. This is simply an extremely bad video game, and that's all there is to it. To make this whole shit show extra heartbreaking, Monster Truck appears to be Another's final project. Not that I'm a huge fan of their games, but any developer deserves to go out on a better note than this. I'd love to be able to tell you more about this Game Boy obscurity, but I literally cannot find a single article about the game on the English language web. Apparently the UK's Mean Machines magazine reviewed it back in the day and gave it a 65 out of 100, which seems surprisingly generous given their love of good racing games. Info's even scarce on the Japanese web. Wikipedia's sole mention of Monster Truck links to a Kusoge review, so you can tell it's dearly loved in its homeland as well. Anyway, if you were hoping for a Game Boy equivalent to Excitebike, keep dreaming. Your best bet is still Motocross Maniacs. Monster Truck is just a huge mess, and one that rightfully never made its way overseas. Next time, it's another racer which is almost guaranteed to be better than this one, if only by default.